We are just about to start our functional fitness flow, so come and lie on your backs. You'll need a lightweight, a TheraBand and a broom handle. I couldn't remember what it was then. Come and lie on your backs. So, get your feet hip distance apart. So we'll start again with our connection. So we want to feel nice and connected underneath both our feet. The lumbosacral junction, the TL junction, both of the shoulder blades and the back of the head. So we'll start back at our feet. So if we're not feeling as connected as we should be, we're just going to shift the weight from side to side until you feel like you've got more balance between the left and right foot. So once you've got that balance, just pause there. Your knees should be pointing towards the ceiling. And you're going to think about where you're feeling that connection underneath your foot. Are you feeling it on the outside of the foot or on the inside of the foot? So if you're feeling it more on the outside, I just want you to try and bring your inner arch down to the floor by pushing the big toe into the floor. Don't curl up your outer toes. If you're feeling it more on the inner arch, then you're going to do the opposite. You're going to try and bring the outer arch down to the floor, but try not to lift that big toe, so the big toe stays planted. Knees pointing to the ceiling. And then we're going to work our way up to the lumbosacral junction, so the junction between the lower back and pelvis. And we're going to just start to tilt the pelvis forwards, pulling the spine away from the floor. And then we're going to reverse peel the spine into the floor and taking the pelvis into a posterior tilt. And then just taking the pelvis from anterior to posterior, posterior to anterior, forwards and backwards. And then I want you to pause in the midpoint between the two end ranges. Lower back should be flat on the floor. Shouldn't be any gap, but you shouldn't be caved into the floor. And your lumbosacral junction should feel more connected now. So then we're going to work our way to the TL junction. So think of your ribs and pelvis like the pages of a book. We're going to try and bring the pages together. So we're closing the book, pulling the ribcage and pelvis parallel with each other. So have a little feel of what your ribs are doing, and if you feel like your ribs are sticking up, then you're just going to try and close the book, bringing the pelvis and the ribcage together. And with doing that, you should feel nice and connected underneath your TL junction. So now we're going to work our way to the shoulder blades, and again, they want to be equal from side to side. So just shift the weight from side to side until you can get that balance, and then think about the shoulders themselves. So where are they? Are they up by your ears and forwards? If they are, we want to try and bring them backwards towards the mat, but don't pin them towards the mat. And you're going to try and pull them down towards your back pocket on the same side. So we're externally rotating and depressing the shoulder. And then come up to the head. Your head wants to push straight back down towards the floor. You don't want the neck to tilt backwards, and you don't want it to come forwards. So we're going straight back down. And we should feel those muscles at the front of the neck come alive. So now put one hand on your chest, one hand on your tummy. And we're just going to think about our breath and think about getting it in the right order first of all. So as we take the breath in, we want to feel the hand on the tummy lift. And lower on the breath out. Breathe in through your nose, out through your mouth, through pursed lips, like you're blowing through a straw. Hand on the chest, doesn't want to move anywhere, so that stays completely still. Just do a couple more breaths before we're going to put our hands around our waists. So once your breath's in the right order, put your hands around your waist, grab hold, fingertips in round the front, thumbs around the back, web of the hands around the sides, and we want to now create our 360-degree breath. So we want to feel all the muscles around the abdominal wall expand outwards on the breath in. So as you take a breath in, think about lifting your hands the whole way round, outwards, so pushing your hands away with the muscles as you breathe in. So if you're struggling to feel those muscles, if you just cough, feel that those muscles expand outwards, and then try and use that as a wake-up connection between your brain and your muscles in your abdominal wall, so that you can try and create that expansion on the breath in. And then the breath out, you're just going to let the muscles relax. So we want to be creating this breath on a day-to-day basis in whatever we're doing. And then when we need more stability, we're going to need to create our brace. But for now, we're just working on that 360 breath in and relaxation on the breath out. If there's an area that you're struggling with, just give it a prod. So just focus on that part first of all. So give the front muscles a poke. Think about those muscles expanding. Give the sides a poke. Think about pushing your thumbs outwards to the sides with the breath in. And then come round the back, cough again. And then think about those muscles pushing your thumbs down towards the floor. And we want to feel that expansion all the way around equally from front to back and from side to side. Okay, so once you've got your breath, your 360 breath, you're going to create your brace. So we're going to create that 360 breath expansion, and then before you take your breath out, you're going to create a little bit of an extra outward push, like you're trying to create that feeling when you're about to fart. So create your 360-degree breath. Create that outward push like you're about to fart. And then don't let the muscles completely relax as you're breathing out. Keep that activation of the muscles, 360 degrees, as you're breathing in and out now. And when you're doing anything in your day-to-day activity that needs more stability, that is what you want to create. You don't want to clench, you don't want to tense, and you don't want to suck in your belly button. Okay, so have your kettlebell nearby and you've moved it. Should have had it nearby at the start. And make sure you've got your good connection, you've got your breath, and we're just going to start by lifting one leg up and lifting the opposite leg. So alternating legs at the minute. So keeping control of the pelvis. So this movement's just coming through the hip. So try and make it nice and smooth. And then what I want you to do next is we're going to take both legs up into the air. So we're going to create our 360 breath. And I'll brace and lift both the legs up into the air and lower down. And lift. And lower. See how your back feels doing this. If it's uncomfortable, you can just go back to just doing single legs. And we're just going to grab hold of the kettlebell in one hand and then just put the kettlebell up to the sky and just continue to do, if you can, you double out toe taps. If you can't, just do single toe taps. So we're keeping the lower back nice and neutral, flat on the floor. Try not to let the lower back lift off the floor. Again, this movement is just coming from the hips. Just do one more and then you're just going to lift your legs up into the air. Keep the hand pointed to the ceiling, so we're keeping the wrist straight. And then we're just going to bring the kettlebell down towards the floor, so elbows to the floor, and then push up. And down. And up. So really nice, slow and controlled movements. Keeping your wrist neutral. And keeping your legs in this 3-month supine position. So with that, you want your ankles to be higher than your knees, ankles in a neutral position, knees over your hips and hips externally rotated and abducted. Just do a couple more. And then swap sides. Put the hand up into the air. If you need a little rest for your hip flexors, just bring your knees in. And then we're going to do some double toe taps again, but with the kettlebell in the opposite hand. Keeping control of that pelvis and lower back. Again, if you can't do double legs because your back's uncomfortable, just make sure you're keeping the lower back neutral and you can do single toe taps instead. Just do a couple more. And then wrist up into the sky, still wrist nice and straight. And we're just going to bring that kettlebell down and up. Really slow, controlled movements. Keep the neck nice and neutral. Just do a few more on this side. Pop the kettlebell down, bring your knees in towards your chest and just give your hips a little rest. Grab hold of your broomstick. We'll start off with the hands nice and wide, still in this 3-month supine position, and we're just going to take the shoulders backwards into flexion, keeping the rib cage and pelvis connected. So what I mean is, when we take the arms back, what we don't want is for this rib flaring and lumbar extension to happen. So if you get to a point where you feel like your ribs are starting to lift, you're just going to hold that position and take a breath in, and then on the exhalation we're just going to try and get a little bit lower. So just going backwards and forwards, nice and steady. And if you can bring your broom into the crease of your hip, and your shoulders are going to be internally rotated, and we're just going to pull the bar, the broom or the PVC pipe up along the body. So we're creating more internal rotation in the shoulder. And then when we get to the point where we can't really go any further without shrugging, we're just going to take the broom over our heads, externally rotating the shoulders backwards. And then pull it back, so we're internally rotating the shoulders, back down to our chest and then down to the hip crease. Anytime you need a little rest for your hip flexors, just give them a little bit of bring your knees to your chest. So we're just going to go through that again. So from the hip crease, pulling the broom up the body, internally rotating the shoulders, and then externally rotating the broom over our heads, keeping the ribs and pelvis connected. Really trying to ingrain that nice pattern where we can get our arms above our head without lifting the ribs and disconnecting the rib cage and pelvis. Just do a couple more. And pop the broom down, bring your knees to your chest, just rest your hip flexors. Back up into your 3-month supine, fingertips pointed to the ceiling. Lift your head slightly, look to the direction you're going to roll, and you're just going to roll onto your side. Really slow, really controlled. Keep your knees separated. Try and make sure your shoulders and your pelvis move at the same time. So we've got the Lego body. And you're just going to roll onto your back and then roll the opposite direction. And then back. And try and control this movement from side to side, so you're not just flopping onto your side or flopping backwards. And try and make sure that your spine's nice and straight, so you're not bananaed when you come down. Keep breathing, so focusing on your 360 breath. Rolling side to side. And then roll onto one side, up into your lower oblique sit. And we're just going to go into a lower oblique plank, side plank. So knees together, and we're just going to lift the hip off the floor. Keep that shoulder nice and active, so we're not pushing the shoulder forwards. we're just going to lift and we're just going to hold that position. And focus on your breath. We want a nice straight spine. Just holding that position, focusing on your breath. And then lower down. Take your legs outwards, put one foot in front of the other, and you're up into your high oblique sit, well not high oblique, so your high hand, and then we're just going to lift up into a side plank. And just hold that position, keeping that shoulder active. If you feel like you can't hold it for too long, that's fine, just lower down. Want a nice straight spine. And then rotate round into your plank. Try and make sure you've got your neutral spine and your upper back nice and long. And we're just going to bend the knee into bear. And then back into plank. And bend your knees into bear. Try and keep control of your pelvis and your lower back. So you're just going from bear into plank. And into bear again. Keep lengthening through the upper back. Keep your lower back and pelvis neutral. Just do a couple more. And then opposite side. So into a side plank. If you need a little rest, take a little rest, that's absolutely fine. And then come up into your side plank. Try and keep your hand fully connected with the floor. Try not to let your fingers claw. I'm just holding that position. If you start to feel everything shaking and you need to just lower down, that's fine. So I'm just going to lower down onto your forearm, knees together, and then just make sure that shoulder's nice and active, your spine's nice and straight, and we're just going to lift and hold that position. See if you can hold it for another 5 seconds. Okay, and down. I'm going to turn around. So you're going to get, well, you don't have to get your kettlebell. You can start off without the kettlebell first of all. So we're just going to do some hinging and lifting. But if you find it quite easy, you're just going to grab the kettlebell, but you're going to put it in a like a front rack position, or your weight, just put it in this, just hold the weight with your hand facing away from you, so you're turning your hand this way, so in like a front rack position. And you're going to have it on the glute side down. So we're just going to hinge and lift. And then slowly lower down. Hinge and lift. Slowly down. Try and make sure you don't land heavily on your knees. If you need to, just put it into a goblet position, into both hands. But what I want you to do next is you're going to come up and then bring that back leg forwards. And then we're going to take that leg back and slowly lower down. So if you do need to have a little rest, because your shoulders starting to fatigue, you can do the goblet and round. So we really need to control that supporting leg as we're bringing the leg back and then coming up. If it's too much with a weight, if there's anyone who's new to the group, then you don't have to use weight. You can just do it without the weight. That's challenging enough. Just do one more, and then you're going to come up into the high kneel position. Grab hold of the broomstick, and the high kneel, we're going to make sure we're not too narrow with the foot. So foot's out to the side, pelvis is level with the floor, rib cage and pelvis connected, lower back and pelvis neutral, and we're just going to go into this position here with the hands quite narrow, like but about your shoulder distance or just outside your shoulders, and just push the broom above your head and then back down. And we're just focusing on keeping the ribs and pelvis connected. So we don't want to just arch the lower back to get the broomstick above the head. So if you get to a point where you're starting to flare your ribs, pause it, breathe in and straighten on the exhalation. Do a couple more. And then if you just put the bar or the broomstick just on your chest, so you're still holding on to it, we're going to curl the back foot under and we're just going to stand up out of that position. And then take that leg back and slowly lower down. So as we're coming up, what we don't want is the pelvis to shift and the knee to collapse inwards. The knee wants to track the second and third toe. And we're just going to stand out of that position and slowly lower down. And then on this next one, take the broom above your head. Might need to go a little bit wider, keeping the ribs and pelvis connected. Take one leg back, slowly lower down. And up. Make sure you don't go too narrow with that back leg as you're coming down. Just do a couple more. And then time with it. Grab hold of your kettlebell into your chest and just do, so it's just challenging you a little bit more, into your chest, into a goblet position. If you don't want to do this with weight, just keep doing it either with the broomstick or just body weight without anything in your hands. Try and focus on that foot connection, so trying to keep your big toe planted into the floor. And slowly down. Okay, put the kettlebell down a sec. Bring that leg back. Slowly lower down. And then you're going to rotate your knees up to the ceiling and then go to the opposite way. And we're going to do that again. So hinging up and slowly down. Add the weight if you want, so this time it will go on the opposite shoulder, or you can go back into your goblet position. And then you're going to come up. Stabilise, bring that back leg round, and then stabilise, take it back, slowly down, up, not on the mat properly here, bring that leg round, so just keep going backwards and forwards, controlling that movement through that supporting glute. And then just do one more. And you're going to come back into your high kneel position. Grab hold of your broom. And we're just going to do some presses. So pelvis level with the floor, neutral spine. Big toe pressing into the floor. Take the broom above your head. Keeping the ribs and pelvis connected. Make sure we're not too narrow with that foot. Keep focusing on your breath. Keep focusing on keeping your ribs and pelvis connected. And then put the broom into your chest and we're going to stand. So curl the back foot under, make sure your big toe's planted, create your 360 breath and stand. Again, when you're coming back, don't go too narrow, don't let your pelvis shoot to the side, don't let your knee cave in. So we're keeping the knee, tracking that second and third toe, and we're slowly lowering down. So try and do it for a count of 3. And use your breath to stabilise you. So create your 360 breath, create your brace.
And then, obviously, because of COVID, we've got into showers a bit. But also, you've got showers. Do you have sauna or? I'll leave it sauna.
And then come up, put your bar above your head. And you're going to so widen your grip. And you're going to go back, keeping the ribcage and pelvis connected. And slowly down again. So just ingraining those good patterns of movement. So just take your time, go nice and and steady. Okay, keep doing that. Just a few more. Nice. Grab hold of your kettlebell. And I'm going to do the same. Can't remember which leg I was just on. I think it was this one. So we're just slowly lowering down. Actually no, it was the other one. And stand. So just adding a little bit more of a challenge into it. So if you don't want to add the weight at this stage, that's not a problem, just keep doing it without weight. Make sure you reset your pelvis every time and try and make sure we're nice and neutral, so we're not in this forward position. Just do one more. And then put that to one side. Bring that leg back. Lower down into your high oblique sit. And we're going to lift. So take that back leg forward. So pull it from this oblique sit position. So you're pulling that back leg in front of the front leg. Lift the pelvis off the floor. Rotate round into your bear position. And then down into your quadruped. And we're just going to work on trying to get that nice lengthened upper back. So tilt your pelvis backwards and forwards. Find your neutral. Hands, you want your middle finger pointed forwards. You want that full connection of the hand on the floor. Once you've found your neutral spine, we're going to try and, if you're quite rounded, pull that upper back down towards the floor without losing the lower back into that lumbar extension. So if you feel like you've done that, try and keep the upper back where it is, and then just tilt the pelvis backwards until you get back into your neutral spine. If you're naturally flatter through your upper back, so you've not got this roundedness, you'll need to push the floor away and try and lift this, your neck and the top of your upper back up towards the ceiling. So you're going to push the floor away, and then we're just going to hinge the hips backwards. So we're hinging the hip, flexing the hips back, keeping that neutral lower back and pelvis, and then come up. So we're extending the hip. Keep focusing on your breath. So we're flexing the hip now. And try and keep nice and long through the upper back, so we're not letting that round as we go backwards. And forwards. Keep control of your pelvis and your lower back. Don't let that lumbar spine extend as you're going forwards and extending your hips. So forwards and backwards. And now curl your feet under, create your brace and your breath in your brace, and then you're going to lift your knees off the floor. Try and keep nice and lengthened through the upper back, and hinge the hips. And then come out of it. So we're keeping the neutral. So we're going back down, lowering the knees down, but don't let them touch the mat. And then we're going to flex the hip again. So we're hinging backwards again, lengthening through the spine. And then walk your hands back into your squat position, neutral lower back and pelvis, up back nice and long, and stand. Okay, grab hold of your broomstick, put the broomstick behind your head, make sure you've got your neutral spine, so tilt your pelvis backwards and forwards, and we're just going to do some hip hinging first, so these are called good mornings, so we're going to fold the hip and keep the spine nice and long, and you'll feel that down the back of the legs. And then we're going to unfold the hip, so we're extending the hip, and then flexing the hip, so we're folding, keeping nice and long through your upper back. And stand. Really control what's happening in your lower back and pelvis. So what you don't want is to just round through your lower back. So we're keeping neutral, keeping long through the upper back and flexing the hips. If you want to add a little bit of a challenge to it, then you just put your feet into the belly band and then around the back of the head. Find your neutral, and then you're flexing the hip and then coming out of it. Keep nice and long. So we're just going really slow, so slower than you would normally do these movements if you were doing them as a warm-up, because we are just reinforcing that good position of the pelvis and lower back. Just do a few more of these. We are nearly done now, just got some squats and some deadlifts to do. Just do one more of these. Pop the band to the side, grab hold of the broomstick again, put the hands behind the head, or the bar behind the head, and we're going to do some squats. So find your neutral spine, get your feet comfortable distance apart, and slowly come down. So we're keeping nice and upright through the upper back, and come back up and control the pelvis on the way down and the way up. Try and make sure that you are going down centrally, so think about where your weight is. Does it feel like you're shifting to one side more than the other? Try and just distribute that weight evenly. So just do this in your own time. Really concentrate on those tiny little micro movements that are happening in the pelvis and lower back. If you feel brave, put your hands above your head with the broom. Get your broomstick nice and wide. Again, find your neutral, lengthen through the upper back, and slowly down. So keeping the broom in the air, and come back up, and try and control that movement again. I'm just going to have a little watch. Try not to overextend the lower back on the way down. And try and keep your arms a little bit more upright, Colette, as you're going down, so you don't just fold on yourself like that. So we want that to be up in the air if you can. So slowly down. But yes, so don't fold on yourself. And slowly up. Okay, bring the broom to the front of you, do some front squats now, and then we'll finish off with some deadlifts. So just, again, find your neutral, slowly down, slowly up. Nice and slow, don't go too fast. Try and keep nice and upright with your upper back and your spine. I can feel my mid-back working really, really hard at the minute to keep an extension. So if you can feel it in there, means you're doing it right. Okay, then put the broom, nearly done now, just going to face this way. Down onto your thighs, feet hip distance apart, and it's kind of the same as the good mornings where you folded like this, but the bar's going to be here, so we're just going to lower the broomstick down the leg, keep the shins vertical, so you're going to push your bum backwards. Push your bum backwards, keep your shins vertical, and then hinge the hip, so fold on your hip, and then you're going to come up, and slowly come up. Again, find your neutral before you set off, and then you're going to fold the hip, push the bum backwards, keep lengthening through the upper back. Try and get your bum a little bit lower. Yes. Okay, good, nice. And then come back up. And again, don't extend the lower back. Get your bum a bit lower. Not too low, and then come back up. Come back up. Just do one or two more and then you're done.